What happens when one of music's biggest stars completely loses it on daytime television? It only took 33 seconds for a friendly conversation to explode into an all-out war that ended with SZA being kicked off the Jennifer Hudson Show in the most dramatic fashion anyone has ever seen. Before we get into this absolutely wild story, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. We bring you daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals, and trust me, you do not want to miss what went down on this show. Last night, on the Jennifer Hudson Show, what was supposed to be a celebration of SZA's incredible music career turned into one of the most shocking confrontations in talk show history. The Grammy-winning artist found herself in a heated argument with host Jennifer Hudson that escalated so quickly and so intensely that security had to get involved, and SZA was ultimately kicked off the set. SZA arrived at the studio, looking absolutely stunning in a flowing outfit that perfectly captured her unique artistic style. A mix of bohemian elegance and street fashion that only she could pull off. The 34-year-old singer settled into the plush chair across from Jennifer Hudson, who greeted her with a warm smile and obvious excitement about having such a talented artist on her show. The studio audience was packed with fans who'd been waiting for this moment for weeks, many of them singing along to SZA's songs during the commercial breaks and holding up signs declaring their love for the artist. "SZA, welcome to the show," Jennifer said with genuine enthusiasm, her powerful voice filling the studio with warmth. "I am such a huge fan of your music. The vulnerability, the honesty, the raw emotion in every single song, it's just incredible. You really bare your soul in a way that's rare." SZA smiled, that shy but genuine smile she's known for, the one that makes her seem approachable despite her superstar status. "Thank you so much. That really means a lot coming from you. You're a legend, an absolute legend, and I grew up listening to your voice. You've inspired so many of us." The conversation started beautifully, with Jennifer asking about SZA's creative process, her journey in the music industry, from her early days to her current success, and what inspired her latest album that had broken streaming records. SZA spoke openly about her experiences, about the challenges of staying authentic in an industry that often pressures artists to conform to certain expectations, and about how she channels personal pain and joy into her art in equal measure. "Your lyrics are so incredibly personal," Jennifer observed, leaning forward with genuine interest. "You really put yourself out there in ways that most artists won't dare to. Songs like Good Days and The Weekend, they're so honest about complicated emotions and difficult situations that a lot of people experience but don't talk about. Where does that courage to be so vulnerable come from?" "I think it comes from wanting to connect with people who feel the same things I do," SZA explained thoughtfully, her hands gesturing expressively as she spoke, her voice soft but confident. "When you're going through something difficult, something that feels isolating, it helps to know you're not alone in that experience. If my music can do that for someone, if it can make them feel seen and understood, then it's worth being vulnerable and putting myself out there." Jennifer nodded appreciatively, her expression warm and encouraging. "And you've been so open about your struggles with anxiety and self-doubt, which I think is really important for young people to hear from successful artists. Not everything is perfect behind the scenes, even when you're at the top of your game." "Exactly," SZA agreed enthusiastically. "Social media makes everything look perfect and curated, but that's not reality. That's not real life. I want people to know it's okay to struggle. It's okay to not have everything figured out all the time. Success doesn't mean you suddenly have all the answers." For the first 20 minutes, the interview flowed smoothly and naturally. They talked about SZA's collaborations with other artists, her fashion choices that had become iconic in their own right, and her deep connection with her fans, who she calls her family. SZA was relaxed and engaging, sharing stories that had the audience laughing and nodding along in recognition. Jennifer seemed genuinely interested in every answer, asking thoughtful follow-up questions that showed she'd done her research and truly appreciated SZA's artistry. They discussed SZA's creative influences, from R&B legends to alternative artists, and how she blends different genres to create her signature sound. Jennifer complimented her on her ability to push boundaries while still creating music that resonates with mainstream audiences. The conversation touched on her Grammy wins, her sold-out tours, and her impact on contemporary music. "You've really changed the game," Jennifer said with admiration. "Young artists today look at what you've done and see that there's room for authenticity in mainstream music, that you don't have to compromise who you are to be successful." SZA looked genuinely touched by the compliment. "That means everything to me. I just want to make music that feels true, you know? Music that represents my actual experiences and emotions without filtering everything through what I think people want to hear." The audience applauded, clearly moved by SZA's sincerity. Everything seemed perfect, like this was going to be one of those interviews that both artists would look back on fondly. But then, the energy shifted. Then Jennifer shifted the conversation in a different direction, and the entire energy in the studio changed dramatically. "SZA, I want to ask you about something that's been talked about a lot in the industry and in the media," Jennifer said, her tone becoming more serious and measured, the warmth draining from her voice. "You've been very open about your personal relationships and experiences in your music, which I think takes courage. But some people have criticized you for being too explicit, for sharing too much intimate detail. What do you say to those critics who think you've crossed a line?" SZA's expression shifted slightly, a flash of something defensive crossing her face. Her posture changed subtly, becoming more guarded. "I mean, I make music about my life and my experiences. That's what artists do, right? That's what makes art relatable. I don't think I'm any more explicit than male artists who talk about the same exact things, actually probably less so." "That's fair," Jennifer acknowledged, but there was something in her tone that suggested she wasn't finished with this line of questioning. "But there's also been discussion about whether some of your lyrics perpetuate certain stereotypes or send the wrong message to young women who look up to you. Have you thought about the responsibility that comes with having such a huge platform and influence?" The question hung in the air, heavy and loaded with implications. SZA sat back in her chair, her body language becoming noticeably more guarded and defensive. "I think everyone interprets art differently, based on their own experiences. I'm not trying to send messages or teach lessons through my music. I'm just being honest about my experiences and my feelings." "I understand that perspective," Jennifer continued, her voice taking on a slightly preachy quality that hadn't been there before. "But when you have millions of young girls looking up to you, listening to every word you say, memorizing every lyric, don't you think there's a responsibility to consider how your lyrics might influence them? How they might internalize certain messages about relationships or self-worth, or how they should allow themselves to be treated?" Several audience members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This was getting into territory that felt more like criticism than conversation, more like an interrogation than an interview. SZA's jaw tightened visibly, and her eyes narrowed just a fraction. "With respect, Jennifer, I don't think it's my job to parent other people's children," SZA said, her voice calm but with a definite edge to it now. "My music is my truth, my authentic expression of my life. If parents are concerned about what their kids are listening to, that's a conversation they need to have with their kids, not something I need to censor myself for. But you can't deny that you have influence, significant influence over young people," Jennifer pressed, leaning forward in her seat with intensity. "When you sing about being in situationships, or toxic relationships, or complicated dynamics, young women might think that's normal or acceptable behavior. Don't you worry about that impact?" "No, I don't worry about that," SZA said, more firmly now, sitting up straighter in her chair. "Because I also sing about recognizing those patterns, about growth and learning from mistakes, about healing and self-discovery. My music isn't one-dimensional. If people only hear what they want to hear and ignore the rest, That's not on me. That's on them. Jennifer's expression became more serious, almost concerned in a way that felt condescending. I'm just saying that as someone who's been in this industry for a long time, longer than you've been making music, I've seen how powerful our words can be, how they can shape young minds and influence behavior. Maybe there's a way to express your truth while also being more conscious of the impact and the message you're sending. More conscious? SZA repeated, and now there was definite irritation creeping into her voice. What does that even mean, Jennifer? Should I censor myself? Should I lie about my experiences to make them more palatable for people who want to judge me from the outside? I'm not saying censor yourself, Jennifer clarified, though her tone remained pointed. I'm saying maybe there's value in considering how you frame things. In thinking about the bigger picture beyond just your personal experiences. The audience was completely silent now, sensing that this friendly interview was rapidly becoming something else entirely. The camera operators exchanged glances, and the producers in the control room were probably having a collective panic attack. The bigger picture, SZA said slowly, her voice getting sharper with each word. You mean the picture where women have to be careful about how they express themselves because someone might judge them? Where we have to consider everyone else's feelings before we tell our own truth? That's not what I'm saying at all, Jennifer defended. But SZA was on a roll now. That's exactly what you're saying, SZA countered, her voice rising. You're basically telling me that I should modify my art, my self-expression, my truth, because you think it might be too much for some people. That's censorship, dressed up as concern. Jennifer's face showed a flash of annoyance. I think you're misunderstanding my point. I'm coming from a place of experience, trying to offer perspective that might help you in the long run. Help me? SZA laughed, but there was no humor in it. I don't need help, Jennifer. My albums go platinum. My tours sell out. My fans connect with my music because it's real. I don't need anyone telling me how to make my art more appropriate or responsible or whatever you want to call it. But at what cost? Jennifer asked, her voice getting louder too, taking on an almost desperate quality. At the cost of potentially influencing young women to accept less than they deserve? To stay in toxic situations because that's what they hear glorified in your songs? Is chart success worth that? Oh my God, SZA said, standing up suddenly, her chair scraping against the floor. Are you seriously blaming me for other people's relationship choices? Are you actually sitting here trying to hold me responsible for how grown adults conduct their personal lives? That's insane. That's absolutely insane. The studio erupted in murmurs and gasps. Some audience members gasped in shock, others looked uncomfortable, and a few actually pulled out their phones despite the strict no recording policy that had been announced before the show. Jennifer stood up as well, her face flushed with a mixture of surprise and anger at SZA's reaction, and her refusal to accept the criticism. I'm not blaming you for anything, Jennifer said defensively, her voice getting higher and more strained. I'm asking you to consider the influence you have. That's what responsible artists do. That's what being a role model means. Responsible artists? SZA's voice was sharp as a knife now, cutting through the tension in the studio. What makes you the authority on what's responsible? Your music isn't exactly always sunshine and rainbows either. You've sung about heartbreak, about pain, about difficult situations, and complicated relationships. How is that different from what I do? It's different because I don't glorify dysfunction, Jennifer shot back, losing more of her composure with each exchange. I sing about overcoming obstacles, not wallowing in them. I sing about growth and healing, not staying stuck. Wallowing? SZA repeated incredulously, her eyes widening. You think I'm wallowing? I'm processing. I'm healing through my art. I'm being human and showing that journey isn't always pretty. Not everything has to have a neat little bow on it, with a moral lesson at the end like we're in some after-school special. But when you're a role model to millions of young women, Jennifer started, but SZA cut her off with intensity. I never asked to be a role model, SZA shouted. And now the entire studio could hear the raw emotion in her voice, could feel the frustration radiating from her. I make music, that's it. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a life coach, I'm not anyone's mother. I'm an artist who shares her experiences through her art, and that should be enough. And I'm saying that whether you asked for it or not, you are a role model, Jennifer insisted loudly, her voice rising to match SZA's volume. Young women look up to you. They emulate you. They copy your style, they quote your lyrics, they model their behavior after what they see from you. You can't just ignore that responsibility because it's inconvenient. Watch me, SZA said coldly, her voice dropping to a dangerous quiet that was somehow more intimidating than shouting. Because I'm not changing who I am or what I create to fit into your idea of what's appropriate or acceptable. That's not authenticity. That's performance. That's being fake. Jennifer's eyes flashed with anger and something that looked like hurt. So, you'd rather be authentic than be helpful? You'd rather be true to yourself than potentially save young women from making the same mistakes you've made? Is your artistic integrity really more important than their well-being? Mistakes, SZA's voice rose to nearly a shout, echoing through the studio. Who are you to call my life experiences mistakes? Who are you to judge how I've lived, what I've been through, and how I choose to express it in my art? You don't know my life. You don't know my journey. I'm someone who cares about the next generation, Jennifer said, her voice shaking slightly with emotion. Someone who understands that we have a duty to lift others up, not lead them down destructive paths with our words and our influence. Destructive paths? SZA laughed bitterly, shaking her head in disbelief. My music has helped millions of people feel less alone. It's helped them process their own experiences. It's given them permission to be imperfect and still worthy of love. But sure, let's call that destructive because it doesn't fit your respectability politics. The phrase respectability politics landed like a bomb in the middle of the studio. Jennifer's face went red, her expression shifting from anger to genuine hurt. That's not fair at all. That's not what this is about at all. Isn't it, though? SZA challenged, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Because from where I'm standing, this is about you thinking I should present myself differently to be more acceptable to certain people, more palatable to mainstream audiences, more respectable according to your standards. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm not here for that. I'm not interested in that. I invited you on my show as a courtesy, Jennifer said, her voice tight with barely controlled anger, her hands gesturing emphatically. I thought we could have a meaningful conversation about your music and your influence and maybe share some wisdom. Instead, you're attacking me for trying to have an honest discussion about important topics. Honest discussion? SZA's eyebrows shot up in disbelief, her expression one of complete incredulity. You ambushed me with criticism, disguised as concern. You invited me here just to lecture me about how you think I should conduct myself and create my art. You had an agenda from the moment I sat down. That's not a discussion, that's an intervention I didn't ask for and definitely don't need. Maybe you need one, Jennifer said sharply, and immediately, the words hung in the air like poison spreading through the room. The audience audibly gasped, and several people actually booed loudly. Jennifer seemed to realize she'd crossed a major line, but pride kept her from backing down or apologizing. Excuse me? SZA's voice was dangerously quiet now, the kind of quiet that feels more threatening than yelling. Did you just say I need an intervention? Did you seriously just say that to me on your show? I said maybe you need to think about the example you're setting, Jennifer. Backtracked slightly, but the damage was already done and everyone knew it. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm trying to help you see a different perspective. No, you said I need an intervention, SZA repeated, her voice getting louder again with each word. Like there's something wrong with me. Like I'm some kind of problem that needs to be fixed. Like I'm broken. How dare you sit there and say that to me? I'm trying to help you, Jennifer insisted. But her voice lacked conviction now, wavering with uncertainty. I've been where you are. I know what it's like to be young and successful, and think you don't need anyone's advice or guidance. I'm 34 years old, SZA said slowly, emphasizing each word with precision. I'm not some naive kid fresh off the street. I've been making music for over a decade. I've built a career on my own terms through hard work and authenticity. And you think you need to help me? You think I need your advice on how to be authentic when that's literally the foundation of everything I do? I think you could benefit from perspective, Jennifer said stiffly, from someone who's navigated this industry longer than you have. Oh, so now it's about experience? SZA's voice dripped with sarcasm. Because you've been famous longer, you get to tell me how to live my life and make my art? That's what this is really about, isn't it? You're bothered that I'm successful doing things my way instead of following some blueprint you think exists. That's ridiculous, Jennifer protested, but her face showed that SZA had hit a nerve. I'm not bothered by your success. I'm concerned about your message. My message is fine, SZA said firmly. My fans understand my message. The only person who seems confused here is you. Your fans are mostly young people who might not have the maturity to understand nuance, Jennifer argued. And that was apparently the final straw for SZA. Oh, so now you're insulting my fans too? SZA's voice was loud enough that everyone in the studio could hear every word clearly. First you come for me, then you come for the people who support me? What's next, Jennifer? You gonna tell me my producers are bad too? My stylists? Where does your judgment end? I'm not judging anyone, Jennifer said, but her voice was shaking now with emotion. I'm trying to have a conversation about responsibility in the music industry. No, you're trying to tear me down on your show to make yourself feel superior, SZA shot back. You're using your platform to attack me because maybe you're threatened by artists who don't follow your rules, who don't need your approval. Threatened? Jennifer's voice rose sharply. You think I'm threatened by you? That's incredibly arrogant. Is it? SZA challenged. Because you're the one who turned what should have been a nice interview into an attack session. You're the one who couldn't just celebrate my music without trying to tell me everything that's wrong with. That sounds like threatened behavior to me. Get off my show, Jennifer said suddenly, her voice cold and final. If you're going to disrespect me and twist everything I say, then you can leave right now. Gladly, SZA said, already pulling off her microphone. I should have known this was going to be some bullshit. You old school artists are all the same. You want everyone to follow your playbook, or you try to tear them down. Old school? Jennifer's voice was almost a shout now. I'm trying to give you wisdom, and you're calling me old school? If the shoe fits, SZA said with a shrug, walking toward the edge of the set. Maybe instead of criticizing artists who are actually connecting with people, you should ask yourself why your approach feels so outdated. My approach has earned me an Oscar, multiple Grammys, and decades of success, Jennifer called after her, her voice shaking with anger and hurt. What have you accomplished besides making music that glorifies dysfunction? SZA stopped in her tracks and turned around slowly. The entire studio held its breath. You know what, Jennifer? I've accomplished something you clearly haven't, staying relevant without tearing other people down. My music speaks for itself. Your need to attack me? That speaks for itself too. Security, Jennifer called out, pointing towards SZA. Please escort her out. Now, don't bother, SZA said, holding up her hand. I'm leaving. This was a mistake from the start. I thought you'd be different, but you're just like everyone else who wants women artists to be small and quiet and acceptable. Well, I'm none of those things, and I never will be. You're making a huge mistake, Jennifer warned, but her voice had lost its earlier confidence. Walking off my show, burning this bridge, you're going to regret this. The only thing I regret is agreeing to come here in the first place, SZA said, her voice cutting and clear. You can keep your show, your advice, and your judgment. I don't need any of it. And with that, SZA walked off the Jennifer Hudson Show, her head held high despite the chaos erupting around her. The audience was in complete disarray. Some people were booing Jennifer. Others were cheering for SZA, and many just sat in shocked silence, trying to process what they'd just witnessed. Jennifer stood alone on her stage, breathing heavily, her carefully crafted show completely derailed. The cameras captured every second as she tried to regain her composure, but it was clear that something had broken in that exchange. Trust, respect, professional courtesy, all of it shattered in the span of a few heated minutes. As SZA's footsteps echoed through the studio and she disappeared through the exit doors, everyone present knew they'd just witnessed something extraordinary and terrible. What should have been a celebration of one of music's brightest talents had turned into an explosive confrontation that revealed deep rifts in how different generations of artists view authenticity, responsibility, and artistic freedom.